Hi, this is Katrina Sargent, owner and creator of Devil Doll Custom Creations. Today we're going to be doing a Halloween plaid tumbler with a bleached shirt distressed decal for epoxy or CrystaLac users. If you're new to my channel, welcome. If you're a subscriber, welcome back. As always, I will have everything linked in the description below. I want to give a huge shout out to Danielle Myers from Damn Fancy Creations. I originally learned how to do this paint plaid from her years ago. Go check her YouTube channel out. So you're going to start with a prepped and painted white tumbler. This is 1-inch painter's tape. You're going to take off a piece and you're going to run it from the top to the bottom, eyeballing a straight line. If you're not confident in your eyeballing ability, you can measure this out. You can mark it out if that's what you choose to do. What I kind of do is I lay a line and then I pick it up and set it on a counter, look at it directly on to make sure it's straight. And if it's not, make a few minor adjustments with the tape. You're going to want this line to be as straight as possible because all your other lines will follow this line all the way around your tumbler. Once you're confident that that's a straight line, you're going to remove another piece of tape and lay it directly next to the one you've already laid. This is going to be a piece that you're going to be removing, which I reuse over and over again until the tumbler is completely taped off. This is just to mark off your spacing. Once you have that lined next to it, you're going to just take another piece of tape and tape it next to it. And then remove the spacing tape. Do this all the way around your entire tumbler. When you get to the beginning line again, sometimes you're going to have to kind of eyeball and adjust that last piece of tape because it's not going to be a 100% even on most tumblers. This is a 20-ounce HOGG. Yours might be more accurate than mine, but I just kind of eyeballed it and then made minor adjustments. I tuck my tape in the tumbler. The bottom, I make sure they're not overlapping. Fold down and rub on your tape before you go out and spray paint. This is the order of paints I did. The next color I used was Rustic Orange over the tape we just did. I lost that video. I am truly sorry, but here is the final result after it dried. So you're going to have your white stripes once you remove all of your tape. Make sure your paint is fully dry before doing this. And then you are going to then tape around your tumbler. The same 1-inch tape. I get new tape on every line that is going to be staying on the tumbler so you don't get any bleed under your tape. So I try to keep the tape a little taut as I'm rotating my tumbler around with the other hand. This just kind of helps it keep nice flushed against that top rim. I like to dog ear my tape to remove it easier. Since this is a spacer tape, I can use an old piece of tape that I just took off. And you're going to do the exact same thing like you did on the vertical lines, removing that spacer tape as you go, and then you're going to take it out and spray paint it your third color. When you get to that bottom line, if you have any overhang, just fold it over the edge. And I personally tape off my bottoms. You don't have to do this. If you do, don't let any tape from the bottom overhang that line. It will ruin your paint line. Just like before, you're going to want to run your hands and fingers along your painter's tape to make sure it's fully adhered to your tumbler and you don't get any spray paint bleed under that paint. Then you take it outside and you're going to be spray painting it your third color, which I actually mix my Rustic Orange and real orange together. I do a light dusting with the real orange first. Make sure you get it in the middle where the white is visible the most, and then I go and dust along my darker shades just a little bit with that Rustic Orange again. This just gives it a slightly different shade, and I think it gives it a little bit more character. You do not have to do this. If you want to stick with 3 different paint shades and not trying to blend anything, that is your plaid. Everything is going to be different. Everyone's is going to be different. Do small bursts with your spray paint to avoid drips. Let this fully dry. You are leaving your other tape on. Then you're going to be taping the vertical lines you already taped before. So your lightest shade of color, you're going to be taping back over. They should line up perfectly since it's the same 1-inch tape. And then you're going to be doing the entire tumbler just like this. Once you have all your tape on, you're going to make sure it is completely adhered. This is the time when you would have the most bleed unders because you're going over a line of tape. So I take my fingernail and run it along the paint tape edges just to make sure it is fully attached to the tumbler and not just the layer of tape underneath it. Now it is time to spray paint your darkest color, which mine is black. Do small little bursts so you don't get any drips, but you're going to paint the entire tumbler, whatever was left open, your darkest color. Let it dry, and then you can remove all of your tape. Since I let all of my paint dry between steps, this is how I got the nice crisp lines. These 2 are the 2 that I sprayed with 2 different spray paints. It just adds a slightly different tint. Before I move on to the next step, I'm going to then do my rims with a sanding block. Since it's just spray paint, it comes off very easy and extremely fast. If you have any bleed over spots or smudges, you can take a sharp craft knife, very gently scratch off any paint. Be careful not to scratch off the bottom color, and then add it to your toner, epoxy, or Brite tone, whatever your preference is. I did 1 coat of Brite tone, and then I added Cullen, which is a Feather Bear Bling micro fine glitter, into my next layer of Brite tone. If you are epoxying, you can add this Cullen to your first layer of epoxy. You need to be careful to only add a little bit. It goes a long way, and if you use too much, it kind of dulls out and makes things look gray. So while that's on the turner, I move on to my divided lines. This is Silhouette Studio. I just made a rectangle, and then I manually changed the size. I have 2 sizes. The larger one is the width of 0.062 by 11.75 inches length. I'm going to color that black just so you have an idea. When I do my second line, I'll have it a different color as well. Once I have it the size I want, I then duplicate it. I like to group them all together, but before I do that, I have them all going down from the top down, and then I have them all spaced correctly. You don't have to do this. I'm maybe just a little OCD, but then you group them, and I move on to my smaller lines. My smaller lines are extremely small. My width is 0.020 by 11.75. When I'm doing these plaids, I always cut out more than I think I need because you are going to be using them vertically and horizontally. So I usually cut out at least of a half of a 12 by 12 sheet in each color. So I am cutting out large vinyl strips in black and white, and then my small lines I am only cutting out in orange. Once your tumbler is cured to whatever epoxy or Brite tone you are using, I then take an extra fine grit sanding block and run it along the tumbler to get off any imperfections that might be there. If you have a piece of lint on your tumbler and you lay vinyl over it, you will see that issue. Don't forget to sand your bottoms very gently. You don't want to sand off any paint. Then I'm going to start with my larger vinyl lines. I add them to the opposite colors. So I'm going to add my black lines onto my white squares. I just eyeball this because it's very simple. They are complete squares since we used 1-inch tape. And then your white lines go over your black squares. I do all of my vertical lines and then I go to my horizontal lines. You're going to do it the exact same way. Before you move on to your horizontal lines, I do take a quick look and make sure everything is straight. I want this tumbler to have one seam, so I do all of my horizontal lines off one of my vertical lines. And then you're going to wrap it around your tumbler and take a sharp craft knife and cut off any extra you have. It is easier to wrap your horizontal lines with it sideways and rotate your tumbler as you hold your vinyl. Since this is a black vertical line on a black horizontal line, you don't need to be as careful as when you're doing your white lines over the black line. When you wrap it, you got to make sure you cover that black line with that white vinyl. You're going to see in a second, I didn't do this for the first couple of my white lines and I realized it and had to take them off and redo them before I moved on to my turner. You'll see that black line and it won't give that seamless look I was looking for. Now once you have all of your larger lines, I take my thinner orange lines and I run them along all of my paint edges. This just kind of makes sure everything is 100% crisp and unified. If you have absolutely no bleed over at all, you don't have to do this. I like the look of the orange going over my white vinyl. This is why I do this last. If you don't like that look, you could do this part first. So I just line it along my edges on all of my edges, all my vertical edges, all of my horizontal edges. Once I have everything lined, I then take a sharp craft knife and cut off all of my extra vinyl. I add my company logo onto the bottom, so I just kind of cut away anything that's overlapping. This is just going to help to have a level bottom a little easier than having multiple layers of vinyl to go through. The tops. When you are cutting your vinyl off the top, make sure you have that stainless steel edge visible. If you cut your vinyl on that very top rim, it will not be sealed under your epoxy or Brite tone, and you need to have that sealed in. Once you cannot fill the vinyl lines anymore, let that cure, and then you're going to be taking this outside to do Dawn power wash method. Here is the tumbler right now. It looks amazing as is. If you don't want to do the decal spot, you don't have to. I have just taken some press and seal and taped off the section I do not want any paint on. We're going to then be spray painting a little bit of white in this middle area to kind of give it a base color, just to kind of get rid of some of that black and orange. I'm doing just little spurts as of right now. Let that dry. And then we are going to be doing the dish soap method. Now this is dry, so you can kind of still see the colors and the lines underneath it. That's okay. We're going to be doing multiple layers. And I'm sorry the video is off to the left side. Take Power Wash Dawn dish soap, and you're going to be spraying along those edges that you don't want any paint on. Don't forget your bottoms and then your top rim as well. Once you have it where you like it, take that white spray paint and immediately spray over the Dawn dish soap, and then take your hose and rinse it off. I kind of do this little rinse and then shake my tumbler, little rinse, shake my tumbler. You're going to have some paint moving and dripping into other areas. I take off my press and seal. I make sure everything is clean. You can take a baby wipe and clean up any areas as well. If you are using Brite tone, which I am, make sure you wipe off any water droplets and then let the paint dry between layers. So now we're going to be doing the next layer. I'm going to then want to make a full line where I don't want any paint. And then I kind of go in and add a little splatters around that edge just to kind of give it more of that bleach look, so it's more sporadic. Spray it with white spray paint and then rinse it off the same way. Rinse it off, shake it, rinse it off, shake it. If you're not happy with the end result, do another layer. I personally love this look, so I'm moving on to my decal. I might be going kind of fast on the decal. I'm trying to keep my length of video down. This is just an image I got off of a Halloween bundle. I'll link it in the description. So it just came with the basic black decal. Now I'll show you how I made my distressed background. This is just a bleached sublimation bundle I got on design bundles. I am then resizing it to the size of my white spray paint I just did. I'm going to copy it, put it back into my other screen. I'm going to make sure it fits into a little rectangle I made. That is the size I can max make the decal if I want any of my white to show under. I then am going to create this into 2 different colors to give it a dimensional look. Copy the same image and create a solid black, and then flip it vertically so it's just slightly different than the top color. I have digital glitter paper pack. I pulled in my orange color, and then I'm going to copy this shape and then paste it onto that glitter page. Once it's there, I'm then going to grab both of them and crop them. This is going to crop that orange glitter paper into that shape. Once it is cropped into that shape, you're then going to have to regroup all of that splatter bleached look because it will be all in individual pieces. And then copy, and paste it back into the original page for you to then layer them on top of each other. And then do some micro adjusting. If you need to make sure it's all within that same size, you can go back into that rectangle of your max size. And then I add the decal on top. I did add a small 0.01 offset onto this black decal in white, just so it pops off of that orange and black just even a little bit more. I printed this off my laser printer on clear water slide. You're going to need a container of lukewarm water. I personally love these cotton gloves for my water slide, but you can have a cotton rag, you can have a coffee filter, whatever your preference is. You're going to put your decal in the water. It's going to curl up, let it be. Don't force a water slide off the backing before it's ready. It will slide gently off when it's ready. Once you're ready to put your water slide on, make sure you have a little bit of water on your tumbler before you add your decal. So I keep the backing on as long as possible. So I lay it where I want it and then slowly remove the backing. If you have any folding, which I actually did, I took tweezers and kind of got that edge out from underneath itself gently. If you do too much, you can rip your water slide, and it unfolded itself really easily. And then you micro adjust until you are completely happy with it. Make sure it is centered, and then you're going to remove all the air and water that's caught between your water slide and your tumbler with that glove or rag or coffee filter. Sometimes you can kind of move your decal if you're not careful. So I kind of hold it with the opposite hand gently and gently rub from the middle to the bottom, middle to the top, around the edges that way. So I'm not moving my decal as I'm removing that water and air. Once you're happy with that, you need to let this dry before moving on to epoxy or Brite tone. If you are using Brite tone, make sure you have all the water off the entire tumbler. Don't let water drops sit on your tumbler. If you're epoxying, I would let it sit for about an hour or two before moving on to epoxy. If you're Brite toning, I let it dry 4 hours-ish before Brite toning. I hope you all loved this tutorial and learned something new. Please, if you have any comments, write them in the comments. I do write back. Please like, share, subscribe. It means the world to me. And thank you everyone for your continued support.